Welcome to Insight Marketing Success, the podcast where marketing knowledge meets real-world experience, from vision to execution.
So welcome, JB. Very happy to have you here today on Insight Marketing Success. You being the founder of and the CEO of Insight Driven Business. So tell us about yourself, who you are. So for those of people who don't know you.
Well, first of all, thank you, Ricardo, for the opportunity to be here. I really appreciate it. I'm really a lifelong learner. I'm an entrepreneur from the very get-go. I've got, about 4 decades of experience, kind of at the crossroads of technology, business strategy, and human behavior. And yes, I am the founder of Insight Driven Business. My focus really is about helping small to mid-sized businesses harness AI to solve real problems strategically, ethically, and profitably. My mission is very simple. It's to create environments where people realize we're more alike than we think, so we can build together. I've spent my life helping others bridge that gap between ideas and execution and between innovation and empathy.
So in your career, I know a little bit about your background, but you have worked for major companies. Among those companies are Apple, I believe. Who else?
Yep, I worked for Apple. I've worked for Creative Labs. I've worked with Arbitron. I worked with, a lot of the technology companies, Intel, Microsoft, and such. And I've had 6 of my own companies. I'm on my 7th one right now.
Oh, wow.
So taking all of the information and the systems and experience of large companies and applying them down to the small business level.
Okay. So in your career, tell us about a challenge that you faced related to marketing that you're very proud of. How it came out about, how you solved it, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I think what's really excited right now specifically is how AI applies to marketing. We have a tendency to think that technology can solve all of your problems. But what I've discovered in all the years that I've been in marketing is that these are just tools. And the really biggest successes in marketing have always come from understanding your human brilliance and combining that with tools. And that's what AI does effectively. It enables you to really go through and shorten the time that it takes for you to do strategy, define tactics, and implement those tactics to be successful. So I have a series of AI applications that are designed specifically for small businesses, and it helps people save time. And time is the one thing that we all have the exact same amount of, but the really successful companies are the ones that use time effectively. And so that's what my tools do. They help small businesses use time effectively and shorten the time it takes from ideating to executing.
All right. Can you give us a case study of any of those that you are pretty proud of?
Sure. Right now, I'm actually working with a company that has a small application that competes effectively with Calm and Headspace. So it's an application called Keyflow. And what we've done is we've recrafted the messaging around an individual person. It's a crowded marketplace. And when you're in a crowded marketplace, you have to figure out what your origin story is, and then be able to speak to one particular person, an avatar that you've defined, and enable them to walk on a journey with you, with your application. And so that's what we're doing with Keyflow. We've created a character called Kifu, and Kifu engages with the individual and the audience. And we have a whole series of emails and advertisements and videos that enable that company to get the most number of viewers engaged and actively using the application in the shortest period of time. We've reached a pretty staggering number of thousands of people within about a month. So I'm pretty excited about being able to roll this one out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I understood you correctly, you you create this avatar, and
Mhm.
it's directed at the ideal client of for the
Mhm.
software, and then speaks
Mhm.
to them and talks about their pain and asks them questions and so forth, and then they sign up for a trial or something.
Yeah, they get a free trial, and they go through what's called a flow process. And in that process, they can actually engage with the application and the character inside the application so that they can experience it. And then once you experience it, then you have an informed choice. And that's really what I'm all about, is making sure that from a marketing perspective, we can actually communicate with our end users, our clients, our customers, and give them the opportunity to make an informed decision.
Awesome. And so all this is done without human intervention or with
Well, that's the
minimal?
thing. Minimal human intervention, exactly. So what we've done is we've taken, again, my tagline is really human brilliance, augmented innovation. And so what we do is we take the experience of people and augment it with the power of artificial intelligence, not to decide things for people, but to provide you with more information and more ways of looking at a problem than you would have normally thought of yourself. And in the process of going through that question and answering, you'll get to a deeper understanding of where you're at, no matter what topic you're in. This happens to be in wellness, but we can do the same thing in sports. We can talk about performance, leadership, talk about marketing, talk about all kinds of different things if we follow that simple process. Human brilliance, augmented innovation.
All right. I'm going to, I love your tagline. That's awesome. Okay. Um, in the process of you working with companies, um,
Mhm.
at least for you, how do you define your ideal customer? A small
Uh,
business.
it's all about attitude. Yep. So I'm focusing on small businesses that are from a revenue perspective, um, are generally somewhere around $1 million or more, up to about $50 million. Now, the reason why I selected that number is because, not because it's a particular number, but because there are certain, we'll say, levels that a CEO and an executive team goes through when they go from get to 1 million, 1 million to 5 to 10 million, 20 million, and then above. Each of them has different areas that need to be focused on. And the system that we've devised over the last 40 years, which we've turned into AIs, enables the $1 million companies to effectively communicate and use marketing the same way a $50 million company would do. We just do it in a very cost-effective way for them.
Leveraging the resources. Awesome. Make them competitive. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. What metrics matter most to you when evaluating the success of a marketing initiative?
Well, I focus on three metrics, right?
Okay.
Meaningful engagement, conversion quality, and brand equity lift. So views and clicks are kind of noise unless they lead to action. And I look for signals that tell me, did we help someone take the next step? Did we reinforce our positioning? And did our audience trust us more after the campaign? It really is truly understanding what the customer journey is with those three metrics.
Okay. Fantastic. I'm going to, the tagline here is creative minds, real insights. Okay. So I'm going to put you in
Mm-hmm.
the spot. I didn't send you this question, but I want to put you in the spot a little bit. Um,
Okay.
I have this prospective client. Um, the name of the
Mm-hmm.
company is called Sugar and Spice. And so what they sell is spices, 100 varieties,
Mm-hmm.
garlic with salt and cumin and pepper and ground pepper and so forth. And it's a small company in Wisconsin, but they have been very successful. So um, I've been being very creative and thought of a video, and I have one of the things the president told me there is like, yeah, but we have to figure out a way to differentiate ourselves because it's such a commodity, and they are a small company,
Mm-hmm.
and they are the McCormicks of the world and so forth. And so
Mm-hmm.
what I have been thinking, and I'll tell you what I have in mind, and then you give me your perspective based on your experience.
Sure.
So um, I've been thinking about a lot about it, and we all have to eat, right? And as you said in this initial podcast, time is of essence. And those of us who are getting older, the time is getting shorter. So we want to have the highest quality of time
Right.
for us and for our families. So I want to link the quality of time at meals with families with the company, right? So I came up with
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
very creative tagline where, bringing tradition from grandma's cooking and so forth to the table and enjoying,
Right.
this, tying the family um, to the spices and linking that emotional
Mm-hmm.
connection. How would you go about it? How would you go about marketing a company like that? Obviously, using AI.
Well, it's really interesting. So identifying who their real client is. I mean, are they regional? Or are they national? Do
So
they want to go
they are
national or do they want to stay?
regional right now. They are regional right now. They are
Okay.
in the upper Midwest, and they want to become national.
Okay.
So that's the goal.
Okay. Okay. So one of the things that really becomes interesting for that type of company is being able to niche down while they're scaling out. So niche down to identify, the kinds of recipes and cooks that they could that use their spices effectively in the recipes that they have, and then speak to those people in those areas that they want to grow. So, for example, if you were talking about cumin, for example, obviously it's a staple in Mexican foods. So being able to utilize, I mean, I can envision a story where you would have Mamacita in the background, right,
Or
making
abuelita.
tortillas and yeah, that's right, and frijoles, right, and doing all of that while at the same time she's having a conversation with her granddaughter who's in California. And her friends in California loved that she made this wonderful meal but didn't know how to do it. And now she has this spice that she can only get in from Wisconsin. And now she can bring that flavor of home to California. Be
Right,
a great way to bring all of that and connect it
right. Awesome.
just off the top of my head. Anyway.
Well, that's fantastic. That's sorry to put you on the spot, but that's the kind of creative juices we have to get for our audience, right?
Yep,
So,
exactly.
all right. How do you foster creativity and collaboration within your team?
That's really interesting because it's I guess we call it structured freedom. So giving clear boundaries, here's what is acceptable to the company. Here's what your role is. Go for it. Have at it. Understanding that outcomes, values, and timing are really the things that I'm concerned with. Let them play within that boundary. So I use frameworks, design sprints, and some collaborative retros. But above all, it's really creating a space for real talk. And that becomes the most important thing because vulnerability breeds innovation. If the team isn't emotionally safe, you can't get creative brilliance. You get safe mediocrity. And I can't stand that.
Awesome. What's one piece of advice you will give a company struggling to differentiate their brand in a crowded place?
Yeah, I think I mentioned this a little earlier. It's really starting with your origin story. What tension birthed your company? Most CEOs start their business because they are the subject matter expert in whatever their product happens to be. Could be a product, could be a service. And so the question ends up being what caused you such tension that you left what you were doing to do something new that you were going to bring to the marketplace. So that's understanding what you stand for, why you're doing what you're doing. But then the next part of that is what you stand against as well. See, the brands that win today, in my opinion, they don't just sell features, they embody beliefs. So if I have one piece of advice, it's get clear on your beliefs, understand your values and vision, and then speak with radical clarity. Your job isn't to be louder, it's to be unmistakable.
Unmistakable. I remember that word from you. Unmistakable. Okay.
Right?
How do you balance brand building efforts with the need to drive short-term results?
Well, you know what? That becomes it's like a dual horizon strategy. So dual horizon means that you're always focusing on getting short-term metrics, but every action is always a step towards your long-term goals. So when you define your values, vision, and mission, it's also understanding where the company wants to go. That's why I asked about your spice company. Where do they want to go? What do they want to, how do they want to grow their business? They want to go national. Okay. That means that the dual horizon activity would be to niche down in that example, which is, okay, how can we identify the kinds of foods that would use our spices and then scale out? How do we connect that emotionally with other people in different locations? That make sense?
Yeah, very much. Very much. And even the food from the north here, where I'm in Minnesota is different from Florida and the south, right? Texas,
Absolutely.
So absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. How do you approach storytelling in your brand communications?
It's the key to everything. Great marketing is all about storytelling. I worked at Apple. I was very fortunate to have worked there twice when we rolled out the Mac and again when we rolled out the iPhone. My role was to, at the very beginning, was to understand how the financial planning and analysis worked. But that gave me the opportunity to work with Steve Jobs at the time in the Think Different campaign. So when you think about storytelling, up until that point, Apple was going down the tubes. Steve comes back, and then all of a sudden, Think Different. What was that about? It was about getting people to understand that using computers wasn't about MIPS and speed and performance and all that stuff. It was about doing the things that enabled you to be the best that you can be. I learned that lesson there, and I've been applying that lesson for everything that I do. So the hero's journey is something that I incorporate in almost everything. And when you understand the power of storytelling, it really is the basis for world-class marketing.
Awesome. Awesome. So for those of you who are new to marketing, I will pay attention for this to what Quillo said. This is really good insight. I've been in it, and I know you are absolutely correct, JB. What marketing or trend are you most excited about right now in the marketing arena, and why?
Well, for me, of course, conversational AI excites me. It's when you use it. Let's see, how do I want to say this? It's not a messenger and it's not intelligence. What it is, you can use it as a mentor. You can be a mentor to it, and it enables you to create a world where your brand can talk to every customer in their language, in their context, and their emotional state, but using your voice. That's powerful. Now, it requires discipline and, again, clear values, prompts, and, responsible data usage and all that kind of thing. But when done right, it's magic. It turns content into connection. And that's what great marketing is about.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Let's see. JB, what advice would you give yourself?
You throw me another curve. I can feel it. I can feel it. Here comes a curve.
No. This is a good one. What advice would you give yourself, knowing what you know today, to the JB who started in his first job? So you can go back in time and tell yourself a piece of advice. What will you tell yourself?
Yeah. I think if I were to go backwards in time, it would be to truly understand what I stand for and what I stand against, stay true to that, and making sure that would understand, really listen to and understand the customer journey. Because when you understand that and understand what you stand for and what you stand against, it makes life pretty simple. And I was trying to fight, trying to swim upstream on almost everything. I had a big chip on my shoulder when I was younger. And it's sometimes very difficult in when you grow up and you not necessarily don't have the pedigree of coming from Stanford or Harvard or something like that, but you see all of those connections and you see all of those different types of things. Be patient, stick with what you know, stick with who you are, and eventually you'll be successful.
So, okay, so then on that same note, tell
Mm-hmm.
me what made you humble. You mentioned you had a chip on your shoulder. So what humbled you?
Well, it doesn't take very long when you start having a chip on your shoulder to realize that it's not really on your shoulder, it's in front of you and you're falling over it. Boom. And once you fall over and you fail, you have two options. Either you pick yourself up, learn from it, and move on, or you allow it to overrun you and become bitter and angry for the rest of your life. And I was very fortunate. I had a couple of mentors who watched me, allowed me to fail, but not so much that it crushed me. And they helped me dust myself off and pick myself up. Uh, it does take time and success. And it's really interesting. I mean, I've probably coached uh, um, thousands of small businesses over the years that I've been doing this. And what I know is instant success takes 15 years,
Right. To
right?
then to
So,
get the
so
know-how, the wisdom.
yep, exactly. Exactly. And how do you get wisdom? By failing forward and picking yourself up, looking backwards and seeing, because looking backwards, you have 20/20 vision. You can see everything at that point. But then turning around and saying, okay, here's where I'd like to go. What do I have to look out for? And not be so focused on this is how I'm going to make it happen that you can ride with the waves of life and the market instead of trying to swim against it.
Okay. So what advice would you give to a new marketing professional starting their career, today?
Mm. Yeah, today it's really interesting. I would say don't get sucked up into the hype of hacking marketing. Um, we have a tendency, as all humans do, to try and take the shortest route from point A to point B, or point Z, I should say. But life isn't a straight line. Marketing isn't a straight line. There are so many different things and subtleties and nuances, and sometimes not so subtle, that you really need to apprentice with an apprentice attitude with whomever you're working so that you can get that experience in the shortest amount of time.
Very
Do
good.
that. Apprentice, have that apprentice mindset.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, this is very good. Is there any piece of advice that you will give to anyone in business? Now, it's not the beginner, but to the marketing manager and or president. In small companies, a lot of the marketing is done by the president, or that top leadership. What piece of advice will you give them?
Mm. Well, I would probably say don't confuse motion with progress. Um, that actually came from a mentor uh, who taught me that busy doesn't mean effective. Strategy is about subtraction. It's about removing the things that aren't going to be effective, and knowing what not to do. Steve Jobs was great at that. When he came back to Apple, he taught you very clearly, we're not going to be uh, selling 195 SKUs. We're going to sell 4, and that's it. Knowing what not to do. And I believe that clarity creates velocity in your business. So when you're clear, you get that speed. And velocity, when you align it with your purpose, is unstoppable. Don't confuse motion with progress.
Very good. Okay. Well, JB, this has been wonderful. We had a lot of time scheduled for this, but this has gone smooth, and I think it's wonderful. So, for those people who want to know more about you, what's your website?
You can reach out to me at insightdriven.business. That's INSIGHT. You can kind of see it over there on the side.
Yep.
Insightdriven.business. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can reach me there. I've spent a lot of time on LinkedIn because I'm a B2B kind of guy. So it's LinkedIn/IN/JB Herrera.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for being part of Inside Marketing Success. I think your wisdom is incredible and greatly appreciated. And I think people are going to get a lot of this podcast. So thank you very much, JB.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I appreciate it, Ricardo. And all the success in the world to Insight Marketing Success.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Insight Marketing Success, where marketing knowledge meets real-world experience from vision to execution.